لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and surely Allah is the friend and protector of the righteous. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners, and that Muhammad the son of Abdullah is his servant and his last messenger. And may Allah always and constantly send peace and blessings to Muhammad, to his family, to his companions, to all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. As to what follows, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great pleasure to be with you again, to see the faces of my brothers and sisters that I haven't seen in a long time. And I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal would make you successful and would protect you in this work that we are doing in these very critical times. For the past year, I've been living in North America, switched from the southern region of Africa into the far north. And moving amongst the Muslims there and seeing the changes the society is going through only confirms that this time period we are living in is extremely important one for Muslims now. We are in a barrel of decision. The actions we are making now will have a serious impact upon what will be happening to our families and our societies in the near future. Very serious things are happening on the ground. But the problem we are facing, and you recognize this especially in living in North America, is that we are living in an age of deception. It's a deception where the human beings have developed the power of illusion, where they can make you feel as though you are successful. They make you feel as though you are intellectual. They make you feel as though you're happy in your society. But in reality, there's something else. And so a false construct, a false world, an electronic society is actually controlling much of what we are thinking. But in reality, on the ground, there is something else happening. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not speak from himself. He spoke from above 7 heavens. And in one authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, يَكُونُ فِي آخِرِ الزَّمَانِ دَجَّالُونَ كَذَّابُونَ يَأْتُونَكُمْ مِنَ الْحَدِيثِ بِمَا لَمْ تَسْمَعُوا أَنْتُمْ وَلَا آبَاؤُكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ لَا يُضِلُّونَكُمْ وَلَا يُفْتِنُونَكُم. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, there will be near the end of time great liars, Dajjalun, like Antichrist, false prophets. They will come to you with a type of speech that neither you nor your parents have ever heard of before. Beware of them. Beware that they take you astray, and beware that they put you into a fitna. And Sadaqa Rasulullah, this has come to pass. Digital technology. What digital technology has done with people's lives. They have come to us with a type of communication, as the Prophet ﷺ said, neither you nor your parents, you never heard of this before. They can make what is false seem true, and make what is true appear to be false. And they do it in such a professional way. They do it in such a way that you may be actually on the ground, in the situation itself, in the incident, and they say something totally different on the news agency. But you doubt yourself, because they're so professional in how they do it. They are great liars. And so we've reached this point, and what many people are realizing on the ground, you don't see this in the press. There is a groundswell that is coming up, especially in the younger generation and those indigenous people, the original peoples of the lands on the earth, that there needs to be a major change. They are waiting for something to happen. Muslims also are waiting for something to happen. We have over 26% of the earth's population. We have some of the richest people on the face of the planet Earth. We have huge armies. We have intellectuals. We have books. We have knowledge. You can now take the books of hadith and put it on a disc, put it in a chip, and put it in your pocket, whereas the great fuqaha and muhaddithin, they had to travel thousands of miles just to get one hadith. But we can take that knowledge and put it in our pocket. But this is a contradiction we have reached. We have reached a stage where something serious will happen to us. You can look in Islamic history and you can see, because with our great wealth that we have, there is also great poverty. And when you travel distances amongst the Muslims, you will go in some areas where you will find Muslims living in extreme conditions. I visited the Sahara al-Kubra in the Great Sahara Desert and met Muslims there living on the edge of the desert with just enough to break their fast. They were same kalima, same salat, same way of practicing their religion, but in terms of their material things, they have almost nothing. Whereas in other parts of the world, you will find Muslims living in a very high standard of living. So this becomes a contradiction, because we're all part of one ummah. We also find that with the great armies and the great potential we have on the ground, that we feel humiliation. We feel that we're not being listened to. Our scholars, instead of dealing with the issues of the world, spend much of the time arguing over trivia. And the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا ضَلَّ قَوْمٌ قَطْ بَعْدَ هُدَى إِلَّا أُوتُوا الْجَدَلَ, that people would not go astray after guidance till they were given the ability to argue, to debate. And this has come to pass. So this is a contradiction. This is what I'm saying. Wealth, poverty. Potential, educational potential, argumentation. Power in the land, but yet humiliation. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, in the end of Surah Al-Hashr, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمُنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Allah tells us, O you who believe, have the consciousness of Allah, and let every soul look to what it has put forward for tomorrow and fear Allah. Surely Allah is well aware of all that you do. And be not as those who forgot Allah, He will make them forget themselves. Surely they are the disobedient ones. So this is the gem of wisdom coming out of this verse. لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. Their wealth would not come to the assistance of the poor. Their armies would not liberate their oppressed. Their intellectuals would not be making achievements with their knowledge. And so, in this type of a contradiction, and Muslims now, one of the movements happening, it's a new approach now to Islamic movement, and that is to look at history. To look at what happened to the different sections of the Muslim world in the past, to take lessons from them in order to understand what is happening to us now. Because many of the things that happened in the past are actually being repeated today. And if you go back to the 13th century of the Common Era, the Mongol invasion, then you will see a similar type of contradiction. You'll see a great empire that its leader is only symbolic, does not really have that struggle, that ability or that desire to protect the ummah. And you will see that although it appears to be a large ummah, it is broken into nation states. You find that and Ibn al-Athir, who was writing at that time, the great historian, he writes that at the time of just before the Mongol invasion, there was no Hujjaj who went from Baghdad to Mecca. They didn't have time. They were too busy with the dunya. And the great ulama at that time were only being paid small amounts of wealth, where the slave of the Khalifa owned hundreds and thousands of acres. And so the contradiction that was happening in the society caused this reaction, sunnatullah. And so this is happening to us as an ummah. It is coming on stronger and stronger and stronger, a feeling of frustration. And at the same time, there is something major which is rumbling underneath. And so this contradiction facing us is pushing us towards dealing with our Islam in a serious way, not just in words. We'll have to deal with it 100%. And what is happening on the ground is pushing the whole of humanity towards a major change. What is the reality of this illusion? What is the reality? For instance, recently in South Africa, and many of you were aware of the fact that the World Cup was in South Africa. And everybody looked to the society, and they built huge stadiums, and it appeared to be a very important event, and it united the people in the country. But the problem that happened after the World Cup left, and FIFA took most of the profits, after the World Cup left, that the country is left with huge stadiums, and they don't know what to do with the stadiums. And the poor are poorer and the rich are richer, and South Africa now has been chosen as the most unequal country on earth. The rich are the richest, and the poor are the poorest. And the stadiums now are like huge alien entities that are just put down in the society, and nobody knows how to fill the stadiums up again. So this euphoria, the illusion of success, made the society feel like it was on top of the world. But when the illusion goes, you're actually worse than you were before. What also came out of South Africa in the past few years to break the illusion was a study that was done by scientists, because it is considered to be one of the oldest places of human existence in the southern African region. So they studied the geology of the world. They studied the presence of different life forms. And they tried to go back in their studies about 500 million years. What they found out, and what they came to the conclusion, is that human beings are living in, right now, what they call the sixth extinction. That there have been 5 major extinctions that have gone on over the past few hundred million years. These extinctions have hit different forms of life. There has been shifting in the plates of the earth, carbon dioxide increase, asteroid impact. There's been a number of big events that have happened throughout history where different forms of life have gone extinct. They don't exist anymore. You only see traces of these forms. We are in the 6th extinction right now. And this extinction is dealing with mammals, it is dealing with plants, mammals, birds. We are in the extinction to the extent that we have gone over 50% extinction. By the misuse of technology, over-exploitation of the land, pollution. We are destroying the environment that was created to make our life enjoyable. In the northern countries, where I am coming from in Canada now, what they found, the shocking event that they found, that there's huge polar bears that live in the north of Canada. And they move across the ice at a certain time of the year that it's frozen, completely frozen, and the polar bears move across the ice. Now the polar bears cannot move to their natural habitats because the ice is melted. So they're stuck. They cannot go to their feeding grounds. There are certain places in the north where you can actually travel across the north of the planet. And for the first time, they were able to, they're moving boats and things through. They've never seen this before. The ice is melting at a rate which has never been recorded before in history. Some of the scientists try to become skeptical and they say, oh no, well these things have happened before. The natural catastrophes that we are facing now on the ground are the worst we've ever seen before. Already 2010, this year has been the worst, it has been the hottest year in history in terms of temperature. And now the ice that is hitting the northern countries, you see what is happening now in the north, and the snow and the ice that is coming down, it is a strange thing, because normally the ice is higher up in the cold, but now it's a little bit lower. And they found that in the Arctic regions there are insects that are escaping from below the Arctic north. Instead of going further south, the insects are going north. So this is really weird. And when you watch the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have an understanding that we don't have. We're too busy with Twitter and Facebook and other things like that. Insects and birds, they're on the ground. When the tsunami struck, right, the animals first, the animals knew before the people and start going up to highland before the actual people understood what was going on. And so animals now are reacting in a really strange way in the north. And what we are seeing, we're seeing major floods, major tornadoes, things that are going on which are, we've never seen anything like this before. We had earthquakes in Toronto and New York. We didn't have earthquakes before. But we had earthquakes since I've been there. One was 5.7 on the Richter scale. It like shook everybody's house. And we never had anything like this before. The floods that are going on in Poland, they had a flood earlier this year, and they said it was the worst flood in living memory. The flood in Pakistan, as some of you may know, they said it was biblical. They said it was like the time of Noah alayhi salam. A moving tsunami through the country. Never seen anything like this before. The forest fires, tornadoes. It is reaching a serious point. And it is interesting that for a long time Muslims did not bother themselves with the situation of the environment because they felt that because they had the Quran and the Sunnah and everything will be okay, and we're not concerned with this. We're more concerned with the rituals of Islam. But in Surah Al-Rum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Corruption has appeared on the land and the sea because of what humanity's hands have done. And we will make them taste what they have earned in order that they would return to the path. This is an interesting verse because it is saying al-fasad fil barri wal bahr. And when the companions of the Prophet ﷺ looked at this verse and they started to comment, it's interesting, their comments, they're saying because of the sins of Bani Adam, because of the sins, our transgression, there would be a decrease in vegetation, a decrease in animal life. There will be a decrease in the fish in the ocean. This is what even the Sahaba were talking about during that time, that because of what humanity's hands have done. But the verse interestingly says, لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا, they will taste it. And we have tasted it in the north. They have what is called acid rain, where the rain, because the poisons of the factory is trapped in the clouds, and it comes back down on you, and the rain is acid. In the rain, which is supposed to be a mercy on you, it becomes an adab. Pollution in the water. Over half, more than half of the fresh water in the world, the rivers and lakes are destroyed. That is one of the beauties in Canada itself, because Canada has more fresh water than any other country in the world. But that is being destroyed also because of this misuse of technology. But the verse continues, we will make them taste something of what they have earned in order that they would return to the path. So what is happening to us is not by chance. It is in order that we would return to the path. And so this issue of the environment has become an issue of humanity. And it is one that Muslims will have to now seriously consider. And those who are involved in Islamic organizations need to see this as an extremely important part of the work of dawah, and also of the work of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, calling to the good and forbidding evil. Because the very concept of khilafat, that humanity has been made as the Khalifa, it does not only mean, people think Khalifa Amir al-Mu'mineen ruling a political state. But the real khilafat is the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth. This is the real khilafat. And that is what people are waiting for now. People are in a serious state of confusion. Earlier this year, they had a major gathering in Copenhagen. The leaders of the world came together. And at this event, the president of the Maldives and other people, other leaders of endangered island states came forward to tell the world this is a crisis. They put it on the table. And so people said Copenhagen, and then they said Hopenhagen, that there's some hope if the world would come together. During the deliberations, it came out that over 85% of the wealth of the world is being consumed by a small group. Maybe about 10% of people are consuming most of the wealth of the world. That one of the problems that has to be dealt with is there has to be the inequality between the rich and the poor. Because the poor are being forced to grow crops that are not their natural crops. They're forced to burn trees, to destroy their environment just to live. And so the inequalities is one of the problems, and then they could not come to a compromise. And so Copenhagen was not Hopenhagen, it became Nopenhagen. No compromise. Earlier this year, or just now, there was another meeting in Cancun, in Mexico. Another major meeting. But the industrialized countries did not send their leaders. They only sent representatives. And the conclusions that came did not really deal fully with the issues on the ground. And so the earth is waiting for something. The people are waiting for something. The ummah is now right at a serious point of change. And Allah tells us very clearly, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. And so this means that we need to have a reanalysis of our understanding of Islam. What is it to be a Muslim? What is the responsibility? we put a lot of emphasis on ibadah, and that is our basis. The usul is in our worship of Allah. But the ibadah, the worship, is supposed to lead us to something else. Ibadah is not supposed to leave you alone, but it's supposed to take us, it enables us to take responsibilities in the world. This responsibility of khilafat, representing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the great issues now is the environment. And we need to see how it is that we can begin to be involved. What they are talking about now is that rainforests are being cut down, pollution is coming on so many different levels, and so I want to put forward to you a few points concerning our responsibility. Number one, we have to individually start to change our lifestyle and to see our responsibility in terms of our relationship with the earth in a totally different way. If you're building a house, if you can get involved with building with solar panels, if you can start to do activities where you are not creating a lot of pollution. When you invest money, when you look at projects, don't just invest in promissory notes. Don't just think about money as the solution to all of the problems. Because money, which we depended on so much, is another illusion. It's an illusion. The dollar bills that you have, the dinars, the dirham, the pounds, they go up and down like this. I went to the country of Zimbabwe, which was the British jewel in southern Africa. It's a beautiful country, beautiful falls, and the people are probably the most educated people, in the south. And the Zimbabwean pound was actually more than the British. And I went there with a group a few years ago, and I changed $100 bills, and they came back with a bag of money. And they said, here, now you're a millionaire. So I had like 10 million Zimbabwe pounds. But if you want a Coca-Cola or something like that, then they ask you for like a million pounds or something. Every time they print their money, they put 3 zeros in it. They print it again, they put 3 more zeros. And it goes up and down like that. Why can the money, how can it be devalued like that? Because that paper is a promissory note. It's a promissory note. It promises you that there's gold in the bank. That paper is worth nothing. It's only a piece of paper with ink on it. And you have a promise from a bank that you can turn that in and you would get your equivalent in gold. What is happening today, they have printed so much paper and there's not enough gold and silver in the bank. And so there is a major devaluation about to come. Some of the great economists in America are saying that by the year 2020, America would be a third world country. It's very possible. And the large cities will have hundreds and thousands of homeless people outside of the cities. And they intend to actually change the dollar and make a new currency like they made the euro in Europe. They would make Amero, which would be the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, and the Mexican peso. So your dollar that you had, they will devalue it, and your dollar is worthless. You'll have to turn it in, and you'll only get 10% back of what it's actually worth. If you don't turn it in, you get nothing. This is what some of the major economists are saying. Because you can't pay debts by borrowing more money. This is an illusion. Again, this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. كَذَّابُونَ دَجَّالُونَ. They are false prophets, liars. They're creating an illusion around us. And so in our life activities, we have to begin to change the way we function. And this issue of Khilafat is an extremely important one, which begins, of course, with us understanding that it is part of our responsibility as Muslims. And especially those who are involved in dawah, those who are reaching out to people of other faiths. This is a way that we can join together as human beings to try to preserve what is happening on the earth. And what we are proposing is what some call an Islamic Earth Charter. And that is that we need to, number one, respect and care for Allah's creation, and to recognize the earth itself and its diversity. There's a thing they call biodiversity. To recognize that insects and plants actually affect the way we live. We're not alone on this planet. And so we have a responsibility. And the Prophet ﷺ actually had this type of thinking. You know, in one hadith is reported, he said that if Qiyamah comes and one of you has a seedling in his hand, plant the seed. Imagine the day of judgment has come. And you have a seed, he said, plant it. Okay, because the earth itself, this is the creation of Allah, and this is an amana or a trust that we have been given. Also, we will have to work towards the protection of the earth and the integrity of all different levels within our existence. And that means that, as I was saying, and this is what we're looking at in the Charter, that we have to adopt different means of production, of consumption, reproduction, and we will have to look at the fact that part of the problem is inequality between the rich and the poor. That we will have to work towards bringing society into equilibrium, balance, bringing back balance. That is the essence of our zakat and sadaqah. If Muslims dealt with zakat alone, if we really collected zakat properly and we distributed this to those who were in need, we would solve many of the problems on the earth. And when we look at fiqh itself, we will look at fiqh, that our jurisprudence, our understanding of our deen, gives us emphasis in the areas which are of importance. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, in looking at this, for instance, said that you have 5 pillars. And of the 5 pillars, you have your shahada, you have your salat, you have your zakat, fast, and hajj. But if there is a drought, or famine, then the pillar of zakah becomes more important than the other ones. This will be given supremacy because of the situation on the ground. And this situation now dealing with the earth means that we will have to be involved on a totally different level than we were involved with before. It will mean that we need to establish shura, mutual consultation on all different levels within our societies. That we will need to strengthen our younger generation to help them to understand what is in front of them in terms of struggling for the environment itself. And we need to promote a culture of God consciousness. And when we talk about taqwa Allah Azza wa Jal, we are talking about al-khawf wal-raja. We are talking about recognizing the presence of Allah. And this shows itself in many different ways. By recognizing the creation of Allah, then we are, in a sense, recognizing the Creator. And so, this is a movement that is being spread in different parts of the world, that we need to see how we can be involved. There are different ways that we can struggle. In the desert areas, it is coming forward with the greening of the desert areas. In some places, what they are making is conservation areas, where you actually you conserve your natural forms of life. the original forms of life in your area, you block, you conserve it in an area in order to protect your biodiversity so that your society can hopefully, inshallah, return to its natural position. So I want to leave you with these thoughts, and I want to open up the floor for any discussion concerning the issue of the environment. It is one being taken on. Muslim student associations, dawah groups are now getting involved in the environmental struggle to work on all different levels of society. One level, of course, is to advocate. That's on a governmental level. And that one is a little more difficult unless you really have a lot of strength on the ground in your area. But we can begin individually by recognizing the situation in the world, educating ourselves, and trying to live in a more clean and honest way, which really for us is fulfilling our responsibility as Muslims. So I want to open up the floor for any comments and discussions that anybody may have concerning this topic. Okay. Floor is open for any questions that anybody has concerning this. Yeah. Yes, this is a very important point, especially about the tap. Now, obviously, living here in the desert, I mean, people should understand that more. But even in Canada, even in a place where we have a lot of fresh water, we recognize that the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, actually gives us the understanding that we should preserve the water. And we should not be wasting water. Fresh water will be one of the most important areas of struggle in the coming 10 to 20 years. Right now in Palestine, in Syria, in this area there, fresh water is becoming a crisis. We know about fresh water right here, right? In terms of the water that we're drinking here. So you can only go so far with this. Okay, so this is a serious situation. Now, there's a question in the back? Yes, brother. Okay. The social networks, in terms of social networking, you mean like the Twitter and all that, things like that? What I say, I mean, I come from a generation, I say I was born in BC. And BC means like, but it actually was before computers. Or actually, I could say I was born in BF, meaning before Facebook. Because Facebook has changed everybody's understanding. Right? And, the point that I'm saying with social networking, we can, it's possible to meet people and to share information with that, which we've never been able to do before. But unfortunately, a lot of it, if you don't know how to use it, if you get controlled by it, you'll spend more time on that machine in that false world than you do in reality itself. And there's so much, the shaitan has got so much power in the internet, man. So much power. The things that come up in front of you and that you're facing. I went onto the Facebook myself. I fought it for a long time. And they said, no, go on Facebook. So then you go on Facebook and all these things are coming at you. And people will display their whole life. Allah musta'an, you will know somebody, you talk to them and you don't know your friend, you don't know much about your friend. You go into Facebook and there's his life. It's like he's taking his clothes off in front of the world. Okay, so this really needs to be controlled. And what we're trying to say to the youth is that you need to spend more time in the natural world. Every time you go to the natural world and you are traveling, whether you're in the forest or whether you're in the Sahara, right, or you're out in the ocean, you are in the creation of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation is perfect. You see the beauty in what Allah is. We're the ones, whenever something comes wrong, it's us, pollution, or it's something that we have done wrong. But if you can find a part of Allah's creation that it's in its natural state, not polluted by people, then you will, you come back to your fitrah. to your natural self. And that is something that we need to do. I was just with some brothers in Kuwait, and they were saying that they still try to spend some time going out in the desert. Well, they will get their tent, and they'll get simple things, and put away your cell phones, whatever, and just go out into the Sahara and spend some time out there under the stars, right? Live a simple life, get up for Fajr, right? Get the water and make wudu without a tap and everything. Make your salat, hear the sounds and whatnot. This is the natural state. And every human being has to do this. We have to, really come away from these false constructs. However, it's a tool which can be used in a positive way. This WikiLeaks thing, man, is like everybody's, talking about WikiLeaks. But you don't know what's going to come out of the leak, right? Anything can come out of there. And you don't even know who actually made the leak in the beginning, right? This is really the issue now. Why did they even make the leak? So there's all kinds of things going on with this. And you see, and this is where this illusion, it's such an illusionary world that you don't know sometimes whether it's truth or false. You're not sure. And that's, we want yaqeen. The more yaqeen that we have, the more reality we have, is the better for us. We want to deal with yaqeen and not with deception. And this is something that we can introduce to the society, especially people who are involved in dawah and whatnot. For instance, just a small thing here, but every time I come back to these countries, when you go to the shopping centers, the plastic bags, what they're doing in some of the other countries is that, you get a bag, you buy a bag, and you have a cloth bag, right? They're trying it here. It didn't work. But when I come here, there's so many bags, man. You end up having 20 bags, man. And people are just throwing things in the bag, throwing in more bags. Where does the plastic go? That plastic doesn't dissolve. This is one possible biodegradable plastic. Because otherwise, I'm wondering, where is all this plastic going? And how long can we continue to put these chemicals, into the ground without expecting a reaction, which is going to come back on us? And this is serious now. It's changing everywhere. And we can start, we need to see this, and especially I'm talking to people who are involved in Islamic work, here in Discover Islam, and those who are individually motivated. We need to see this as part of our responsibility as Muslims. It's not just making salat. There's other things that we need to start to think to do. How we project our lives, how we organize ourselves, how we consume, how we, even our rubbish, how we throw it away. All of these things will have an impact upon our lives. We don't see it now, but it is coming. In some parts of the world, it's almost too late. They're saying now in some of the island states in the Pacific, they don't have much time. They don't have much time at all before the water is going to take them over. They're actually making an evacuation plan where they're going to take the people. Their countries are literally going to be under the water. So nobody is safe from this. Nobody. That reclaimed land that we live on, and here in Bahrain we live on so much of the reclaimed land, right? We claim something, this could be claimed back, right? La samah Allah. This can be claimed back very easily. And so if we don't take our responsibility, there's going to be a reaction. Okay, it's going to be a reaction. Well, again, there's an illusionary thing which is set up, where the news will always bring you bad news that's going on everywhere. But there's good news too. There's people who are, entering Islam. There's people who are changing their lifestyles. There is good that is happening in different parts of the world. And, the key issue for us, number one, we have to start with ourselves. If we can begin with ourselves and with our families and our communities, then and we ultimately have to believe that the promise of Allah is true. You need to read the books and hadith, alamat as-sa'ah, the signs of the last days, because we're close. And so we need to believe and understand what will be happening as we move toward the day of resurrection. Okay? And to understand we're in a process right now. So, we keep the greater picture of things, but on a personal level, we have to try to do something now. And we believe that Allah will ultimately bring about, the protection of the believers, and, times will change. Well, there was a hope that on a governmental level, that they would take their responsibilities. But it turns out that they're not really ready at this point to do this. Because unfortunately there is a small elite of people, who are controlling the vast resources of the world, right? And so, it was hoped that through discussion and through reasoning, that, this equilibrium could come about. And people could see everything's going to be destroyed. But they're not moving, man. So in Cancun in Mexico, you find a lot of the indigenous people on the ground. There's organizing being done, now all over the world with the indigenous organizations, people on the ground, trying to advocate, to their governments, in their societies, to bring about change any way they possibly can, before it is too late. And really, and Allah knows best, I believe that the environment itself is going to force us to change. You can see it coming now. Because once that thing hits you, you're finished. That volcano in Iceland that went out, and it just destroyed air traffic. Just a little bit of smoke. Right? Little like dukhan. Like this little bit of this dukhan, like one of the alamat as-sa'ah. Right? Suddenly nobody can fly. That's how delicate it is. We think our system is powerful, but it's delicate. Our Twitter and this overnight, this thing can go off. So if we have no more social networking with our handheld machines, then what can we do? We can't. Some people can't talk to each other anymore. They have to talk to that. So you have to, maybe it's better if it goes off for a while, so we can learn to talk to each other. And really, they're getting so mad with this WikiLeaks, they might turn it off anyway, right? They might turn it off for a while. I mean, it's true. I mean, some people now, in many of the countries, even to drive around their own city, they have the Google map, right?
Yeah. They don't know
he doesn't even know, if he doesn't have the thing, he doesn't even know how to get home. So what happened to that, connection with the North Star and finding our way around? Now Google Map. So what if the Google Shaitan gives you the wrong map? What if he tells you to go the wrong way? Then your whole thing is based on this electronic world, right? So we have to put it down sometimes and try to go back. I say I'm born in BC, right? Before computers. That's not a long time ago, man. That's only in the 90s. That's not a long time ago. But for some people, they can't even think about existence without a cell phone. They can't even think about it without a laptop. How can you live? What can you do? How can you enjoy yourself? You see, it's an illusion. It's an illusion. And this is the way it is. وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. The life of this world is nothing but material deception. So the more things we can do to come out of the deception, it's actually better for us. Spend some time, everybody needs to spend some time out in the desert. Go on the ocean sometimes. I was in Muscat. I went to, at the end, Abu Ahmed. He's one of the old Omani sailors. And he took us on the boat. And we went to Ras al-Had, to the end. Okay, and he's in the ocean there, and the waves are in front of him. And he said, go to the right, go to the left. And I said, what is this? There's about 1,000 waves. And the brother said, he looks at the wave, it's like a road. He sees a road in the waves. Okay? It's another understanding altogether. Did he pull out his Google map and say, which wave should I go to the right, the Google thing? He naturally sees his way through the ocean, right? Because of his connection with the stars and with the natural things, right? And this is what we all need to spend some time doing this. Whatever environment you come from, spend some time. You may not be able to go into our environment. That means you got to go in the snow, right? Put on your things and go out into the snow for a while, in the cold environment. Okay, but that's a good experience too. Just like living in Bahrain in July and August, you know, is an experience, right? That people should go through. These are extremes in temperatures, right? And so, you know, but we need to be more in tune with the natural world. Now, any other final questions that we have before we close? Yes, brother. This is a very important point, because really when you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ and you look at what he has given us, look at it closely, right? Not on a superficial surface level. We will see that character is the essence of Islam. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, he said, Bu'ithtu, this is in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, Bu'ithtu li utamima husnul akhlaq. I have been sent in order to perfect the best in character. And one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what would be the main reason why people would enter paradise? And he said, Taqwallah wa husnul khuluq. It's the consciousness of Allah and good character. And what will be the main reason why they will enter hell? He said, al-fam wal-faraj. The mouth and the private parts. So really, we need a new analysis of our Islam. Honestly. And if we don't do this, I fear that Allah would erase us and replace us with another people. This has happened in the past. Replace us with another people altogether. Because somebody has to take up this responsibility of the Khilafat, to deal with this earth. Somebody has to do it. And the organizations around the world, they're looking for somebody. And it's frustrating as a Muslim, you look at a distance, because we've got the answers. We have the answers. We have a holistic way of living. These principles are within our way of life. And it's still alive. Okay? But somebody will have to put this into practice now. And if we don't do it, then some of those poor people who are suffering now, right, who you think they're nothing, Allah can give them power and give them authority in the same way that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were poor people at one time. They had nothing. And you see stories of them, they were starving so much that they even had to put stones on their stomach because they were so hungry. Right? And then Allah gave them authority in the land. So the same thing can happen again if Muslims don't wake up before it is too late.